Okay, so some requests on flowers and such. One of those types of flowers was a orchid. So let's type that in. These have a very specific look to them that are actually not too bad once we actually break down that shape. I'm actually going to start with a cube, delete everything but the top. So I guess I could have started with a plane. And now that I have this, looking at this shape, I can make something like that. Go to my multi-cut and hold down Control to make a cut here, maybe a cut there, and a cut here and here. I'm going to go in my top view, and I'm going to go to my vertex, bring this around here, and what I'm doing is just trying to form that petal so a shape like this. If I were to hit the 3 key, it does nothing and freezes my, there we go. So it gives me this shape. Sort of there, but not. So if I go back to 1 and I pull down on here and I tuck these back in some more and I hit 3 key, that's getting a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. So you might notice that there's these hard edges that aren't going away. We can just go into Edit Mesh, delete edge, or sorry, delete edge vertex. Doesn't want to do it. There we go. I'm just using my delete key, and that'll force this to do that. Hitting the 3 key gives me more of this shape. That's actually closer to what I want. Pull this closer down, and we'll pull this closer up, giving me this shape now. That's looking a lot better. Pull this out. Now I'm going to grab this piece, hold down Shift, and drag outwards. So now I have this. So here's the main shape. I deleted the sides of this, pulled this down, and then now, if I were to start to pull this around, I can start to kind of shape that look to it. Now I might want to bend right here, so I can go to my multi-cut, cut right here, and rotate. 3 key, cool. Now, this center point is right here, so the pivot is going to be really weird if I were to rotate. So what I'm going to do is Control D, actually not Control D, I'm going to hit D on my keyboard, and holding down the V key, this is going to change that pivot point. So pressing D allows me to modify that pivot point. Holding down V allows me to do a snap on vertex, and if I just drag it on one of the axes, just the X, I can get that to right here. I'm going to hit D again to set that pivot point. Now if I want to move this to this origin right here, if I hold down X, I'll snap that to the middle. Okay. Now I'm going to move this over a little bit more. Control D to duplicate, and rotate it over. Control D, duplicate, move it over, maybe pivot that down, and I'm going to duplicate that again. Scale that inwards a little bit, duplicate, move that around there. Starting to shape up. That middle section, we can just play around with some shapes to get that, but we have kind of the essence of it. I don't know if it's like the stamen. We can fake that with maybe some smaller ones. Again, micro details, if it's something that no one's going to get super close to this flower, why waste our time trying to make those shapes when it's going to be kind of lost, especially in the scale of that flower. So small shapes might actually fake what that other shape might look like. So I'm just adding, again, the same shape over and over and over again. Let me bring these up more so they're not interacting with the other ones. Bring those down. And then this one over. Now, there is some curvature outwards with this, and I don't really have that represented with these shapes. I could just grab these 3 vertices and pull these up. Again, I'm recording this too, so you guys can see that. Also, you're allowed to ask questions during recording. Forever you'll be immortalized in the recording. Cool, right? No? Everyone's super quiet. This is hilarious. Who wants candy? Oh, someone. Oh, that was a trick. You're in the recording now. So I'm just changing these out. We might have candy during Halloween. Okay. So that's a thing, right? Does that look sort of like a... You can say no. It's okay. Combine it. Mesh. Combine. Now, let's say that we wanted to make a vine for this. So if we want to make a vine, we could do something like this. CV curve tool. And I got this thing. If I take this thing, I'm going to scale this down. Okay. I only need this one face, so I'm going to delete all these other ones. Now I'm going to select that. I'm going to select this. Go to extrude. Now right away, it went to the end point. That's okay, because I'm going to go and add more divisions. And that's the sound you have to make, by the way. You have to make that sound. Now that I have this, I'm going to go into my attribute editor. I'm going to click right here. And you're going to see, here's twist. So we can make it sort of look like it's organically rotating around. All trees and nature kind of have that spinning effect that happens. If you look at a tree trunk, you'll notice there's a natural twist occurring on those. And then I can also add a taper. So I can mess around with a taper. I can also organically change which parts are thicker and thinner as we go. So lots of cool ways that we can build up like a tree vine or something like that. Now I can take something like that. If I hit the 3 key, that smooths out to be like a vine. And the cool part is, since this is on a CV curve, shading X-ray, it's inside of here. If I go to my control vertex, I can move that around. So, isn't that cool? So we can put that wherever we need that to go, and then orchids are not that big. I understand that. But we can throw that on there. So cool ways that we can just build up some shapes. We haven't talked about these techniques. These are just more in case if you are willing to go above and beyond. That's always a cool thing. I'm going to make a flower that's a little bit more simple in shape. So I'm going to go into my setup for my sphere, and I'm going to change that to 12. Now that I have that, I am going to delete half of this out. And I'm going to get rid of even more than that in a second here. Okay. So I kind of want just a little bit of these shapes here. All right. So from here, I'm going to get rid of this part. And I'm going to grab these two and hit delete. And now I made this triangle. Hitting the 3 on the mesh preview is pretty good. Now this is single-sided. You'll see it goes from black to gray. So if I were to grab this and then just use an extrusion on it and just pull that out, it's no longer going to do that to me when I hit 3. So now that I have this, I'm going to move this up towards the origin, hit the D key to change my pivot point. I'm going to rotate that down. Control D. Rotate, Control D, rotate, Control D. Just a simple shape for a flower. Now, to make this feel a little bit more full, I could have also like thickened it out like that if I wanted to. Or I'm going to go into Mesh Combine, Control D to duplicate it, and then rotate it. And now we have some type of flower that might look like that. There's the middle section we'd add. We could even just put a little shape in the middle there, and we got this flower thing. And now again, Mesh Combine, and whoops, I've got a little flower on this. So there's some flowers. Next column. Let's grab a cylinder, and I'm going to grab all of these edges. I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit and hit bevel. I'm going to change the fraction of that. Okay. Now, I'm going to grab every other one of these. And about 15 years, there we go. All right, so I've got this. I'm going to hit extrude. I'm going to pull that in. Now, the top made a mess. I can see all these little issues. I'm just going to go across the top, have those selected, hit delete. Go across the bottom, have those selected, hit delete. I'm going to hit 3 key on there. Column. So, oh wait. Let's do this and that and put that down there. Let's select all of this and hit bevel. Reduce that fraction a tad. And we don't need to add more geometry to make that larger. Just grab the vertices up here and just pull that up. Same thing with the bottom one. We can duplicate that, put a cap on it, and you have a column. You want to make it fancy, we can do a lot of different little things with that. We can shrink that down or put something like that. Or we could add a cylinder. I'm going to give it a little rotate on there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is double click on this cap edge and that one too. I'm holding on shift to do that. I'm going to bevel that. That's going to give me a hold edge. Actually, let's try this first. I'm going to go this way, and now I'll bevel this to give myself a hold edge. So I want those to be pretty close together. And that didn't go as close as I wanted to, so I'm going to manually just smoosh that next to it. All right, so I have this. It gives me sort of this shape. Now, I'm going to grab all of this and extrude in, push it back, extrude in, pull that forward, extrude in. I'm just playing around with my shapes. And actually, let's just grab these 3. I'm going to move these forward a little bit more. So if I hit 3, it gives me this shape. It's not bad. It could use a little bit more hold edges, but you can kind of see what we could do if we threw this up to the top and shrunk that down, move it over. We can get something like that going on for a column. All right, let me add that to another layer. Alrighty. Now, we are going to make a lantern, and then a flag, and we'll be done. Lantern. All right. So I have this shape. It's just 12 for my polysphere. And what I'm going to do is go and type in a Chinese lantern, or something that just gives me reference that I can look at. Remember, in animation, it's always a good idea to over-exaggerate the details. So if we made something like this, we're almost there. But what I'm trying to do is accent kind of that curvature that happens on the inside of these things. So what I'm going to do is go down this path. If I were to represent it with these many of those ribs, it would be lost as a small object. So I'm actually doing this as a larger, with less amount of those ribbings, so it reads further back. Because if it's a small detail, I don't want to have that loss. So I'm going to go to bevel. I'm going to reduce that. And I'm also going to increase my segments to like a 2. Now, if I were to go into my multi-cut and kind of just go basically down the middle, if I hold down Control and Shift, it'll lock on snap sets set at 10. So I can do that at 50% too if I wanted to. So that way it'll snap right down the middle. It's a lot easier to snap this. And from here, I'm just going to grab all of those pieces. And this lantern really is just the idea of fun with edge loops. And we could even do a bevel on that. And 3. We kind of have this type of a shape. So if I wanted to add just some extra fanciness to this, like some edgings on here, what we could do is I'm going to create another sphere, same size. Give myself 12 again. I'm going to hide my fancy one first. And with this one, I'm going to go every other. And I'm going to hit bevel on that. So I have a shape like this. I'm going to go from here down to here, hold down Shift, double click. Hold down Shift still, click from here to here, double click, here to here, double click. So I have Shift held down to be able to select all of these pieces. I'm going to select inverse, hit delete. I'm going to grab all of these and then hit extrude, pull out a little bit. I'll do that once. I'm going to do that one more time. And now, if I bring back that other model, kind of got that shape on there. So it just gives me some fancier detail on there. I can scale that in so it feels like it's more part of that model. Now, I've got that going on. I could just add a little cylinder on the bottom and scale that out a little bit to kind of represent sort of that idea. And then on the top, that's just a matter of using create polygon primitives and pipe. Bring this up, scale that down, and I'm going to use this at a thickness of maybe like a 0.1. So that way it just kind of has that same, it's like a false opening I can put on there. So that's how we can do a lantern. Now, how do we make that lantern look like it's lit up? I'm going to go into my create materials. I'm going to use a blend. And I'm going to make this a red. Now, I'm going to change my incandescence to a red. My specular level is pretty high, and that is why you're seeing that sheen. I don't really need that on a material like this. It should be pretty flat. Okay. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to just drag that onto my model. And this incandescence on here will actually glow. if I do an Arnold preview on that, you should see that glowing. So it's kind of a nice little effect on that. Now, if you want fancy gold on there, we can do that as well by going into the Arnold materials, go to Shader, and AI Standard Surface. From here, all you would have to do with that is go to Presets and go to Gold. Now, we'll grab that ribbage and then add that. It's hard to see it because it is not, there's no light in the scene. So if I add an area light and I back that up, okay. I'm going to increase my intensity on that so we can actually see this a little bit more. Just add this to the top and this one too. All right, so now you can sort of see it's got that gold sheen on there, which just kind of gives a little extra element to it. Just realize that using shaders that use gold, things like that, it does start to take longer to render that. Okay. Last but not least, a grand old flag. This is using the same technique as what we were kind of experimenting with earlier. I'm going to go to Create. This is a simple way. This is not going to be animatable. There is some ways that we could do an animated flag as well. But let's say that we just wanted something that had a curvature appearance like that. I'm going to create a cube, move this over, shrink it down. All right. I only need that face selected and that curve again. I'm going to go to my extrude, and I'm going to crank up that divisions this time to maybe like 50. And I'm going to delete my history. So I'm going to have this selected. Edit, delete by type, history. I don't need that curve anymore. This one right here, I'm going to hit delete on that. And now I'm going to go along the side of this. I'm going to select from here to the end, double click, so I have all those. I'm going to go to select, inverse, delete, and I have this. And let's just add a little bit of thickness to it so we don't have it showing up in black. Went the wrong way. Extrude. And if it's still black, go to mesh display, set to face or conform, and we should be able to get that back. So this is just a cheesy way to get something that looks like cloth. Now, you don't need to do this, but for those of you who are like, but I really need cloth, oh boy, I shouldn't be doing this. Just in case if you're curious, I'm going to change this to 50. Make sure you save your work if you're going to do this. I'm going to create 2 little cubes, 1, 2, and now I'm going to turn this thing into end cloth. And then I'm going to take these things and turn those into passive colliders. So I'm in my effects area. Usually we're in modeling. So, and you'll have the video to watch this in case if for whatever reason you want to do this. You do not need to do this. I'm going to grab vertices of my cloth, like right here, into this, and then go to end constraint, point to surface. This thing as well. I'm going to grab vertices. I'm going to grab the object that I want it to be pinned to, end constraint, point to surface. Again, this is way out in the weeds. We don't need to go that far. Now I'm going to hit play. And it's doing this. There's no wind. What? So let's fix that. I'm going to go to my nucleus, wind speed. Let's crank that up. Which direction do we want it to go in? The z-axis. So wind direction, we want x, y, z. Let's tell that to be like 20, and we'll tell this to be a 0. So now spooky ghost. So this is how you could make cloth. Now my seniors are following along and making cloth right now and crashing the computer. So I mean, it's really hard to crash it with cloth nowadays, but they are. The chaps, the student making chaps right now, for whatever reason, has crashed my computers a few times. So yeah, this is how we can simulate stuff. Putting cloth in, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to have this video valid for you guys. Don't feel you have to put cloth in there, but I like to give you some sprinkles of the future. So